All right, guys, I gotta talk about this. It's about John Lewis. I just saw a documentary that was done on PBS about John Lewis 3 years before his death. Let me give you my feelings about him and why I can understand why some people feel the way they do about him. This is DJ Wolf Live. All right. Let's talk about the trouble. Okay, John Lewis, as you know, died on July 17th. I think he had a long bout with cancer. I don't know how long he had it, but I know he did have a bout with it, and unfortunately, he succumbed. He was a long-time civil rights leader, a little civil rights worker, and a long-time congressman from the state of Georgia. I give him his props because there's not too many men, and I will say men, that will go out and face and stare down injustice face first. Get beat down and then come back up and face it again in the process. Now, he had been in the forefront of some of the most notable civil rights incidents that civil rights events that have ever taken place. The Senate encounter was the one that started off with John Lewis. He later on worked with Dr. King and the other four main civil rights workers at the time, including Abernathy and Hosea Williams, with the March on Washington in 1963 at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, where John Lewis actually did speak at that memorial at the age of 23. He had a speech that he actually was going to write that they said sounded kind of militant, had kind of militant levels about it. And one of the legendary civil rights leaders, H. Philip Randolph, had talked about writing, according to my understanding of this. So he wrote it, but they toned it down. That's what actually happened. But you could tell he was a little ticked about what he had to say in it, but he stood his ground. And then the famed walk in Selma on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Now, I didn't know until recently that Edmund Pettus was a bona fide racist. Yeah, he was a grand dragon for the KKK. And they named a bridge after the son of a bitch. They recently talked about changing the bridge to name it after John Lewis, which I think they should. John Lewis was the one that stood racism in his face and took it head on, despite what his parents told him not to do it. I just did a lesson about overcoming family drama. I talked about this a while back, where not everything, even though your parents are loving and they want nothing but the best for you and everything, don't always know what's good for you as a young adult, what you need to do in your life. They don't, And I remember my dad wanted to be a worker like he was, and I told him I didn't really want to do that type of work. Not that I wasn't cut out for it. I could have, maybe he thought I wasn't cut out for it, but I didn't care. I wasn't doing that kind of work. I didn't want to do that kind of labor work. I wanted to do something else. When I told him what I wanted to do, he was like, "Really? You really want to go out and do that? That ain't the type of work you need to be doing." Okay, so much for that. I didn't do what I wanted to do. Come to find out, that was the best fit for me. but he listened to his parents. He still had a sense of responsibility that he was taught by his parents, but he was not going to sit on his laurels. That's what his parents wanted him to do, was to not rock the boat. And he tilted the joker over, so to speak. And I think that was a good thing, because he did inspire others. Like he was inspired by Dr. King himself. We gotta get over here, man. But anyway, he had a confrontation with Snake. That's a Southern, I think it's I forgot that thing. Well, anyway, and they eventually kicked him out. All right, he got kicked out. I think because they thought that John Lewis was not the radical they thought he was going to be. The potential was there. You know, he somewhat was, but he was doing it more in a non-violent way than anything. And I guess they were going in a bit of a different direction. So he got kicked out and left. And these people out here at the road. So eventually they oh man, you wait till I get over there. Eventually he left, and he did more of the voter registration, which is what he started doing in the 60s, and he did more of that later on. And then he became a congressman. I think he ran against what was the guy named Junior Bond. He ran against Junior Bond. What I noticed was he started playing politics right away with that. He told him, I wanted to be truthful. I wanted to take a drug test. Did you take a drug test? Of course, John Lewis took the drug test, and he came up negative, and the rumor has it that Junior Bond came up positive. Here's my thing with that. I got a feeling that John Lewis knew that Junior Bond had been known to frequent certain things, and that's probably why he did that. He reluctantly took it, and he lost the election to John Lewis. John Lewis been in office ever since, from that time up to his death. Some over 30 some odd years. Now, since that time, John Lewis has never, and that, as far as I know, and from stuff I've seen, he has never spoke out against police brutality. I've never heard him say. I've never heard him say it publicly. I've never heard him say it recently in the last few years. He never spoke out about the shootings of innocent black men, women, boys, and girls. I've never heard him do that. What I did see him do was speak up for illegal immigrants and gay rights. That I saw him do. So basically, he spoke up for Hispanics, Latino community, and he spoke up for the gay community. But when it comes to the African American community, it's all about voting. It's all about getting votes. Not much else. And I noticed that too. I was like, wait a minute. Because a couple of YouTubers had talked about him, mentioning that. And everything you would think he would continue to speak, or would speak out about, as far as supporting his own people, he stopped doing, or didn't do it all anymore. Or didn't do, period, the last 30 years since he, became a congressman. I noticed that. He just went radio silent. And I thought about one thing, because I was watching the special, and one of the things I thought about, maybe the reason why John Lewis decided to reach out to Hispanics and support their plight, support the fight against their plight, was for votes, to keep them in office. Yeah, I said it. I truly do believe it. I think John Lewis, the longer he stayed in Congress, the more politics he played. But he played it to his advantage, not to the advantage of the African American people as a whole, but to the advantage of John Lewis. I'm being honest. Because I thought about, I said, wait a minute. The moves he made the last several years was not even for black folks with our plight of police brutality, double-digit unemployment, education, and all that. He stopped doing that. He sold out. He sold out. Let's be real. He sold out. You know? Us, it was about good trouble and voter registration. That's it. He stopped right there. That's what he was known for. He wasn't really known for being much of a fighter. He wasn't. Matter of fact, he wasn't known for being a fighter at all. And if you listen to his speeches and statements, he was about love. Now, nothing wrong with that. I'll give him credit where credit due. Yeah, nothing wrong with having a one world love mentality. You know? But in the real world, that don't exist. It don't. It really don't. You got Hispanic people, man, don't even like black folks. Real talk. I've dealt with them personally. You know? Not everybody who's Hispanic is like that, but there's a number I've met that are not really fond of black folks. They won't even want you to marry their daughter. Oh, yeah. They've been known to be biased against black folks, too. And then he's representing gay folks. The majority of gays are white. Not to say that all gays are white, but a lot of them are. And guess who you're going to represent, John Lewis? Not black folks. You know, at the time. And that's why I kind of like, I commend what he did during the Civil Rights Movement. I can't knock it. I actually even got emotional thinking about what he had to endure and what he dealt with. But beyond that, it was all about voter registration and nothing else. You know, I'm being serious, folks. I mean, that's how I feel. I respect him for doing that. But beyond that, he became a congressman and did nothing else. It speaks for itself. And most of the, outside of the funeral coverage, the little reports that they did about John Lewis, but there was not a lot of substance to it. He was a man of substance, but he was a man of limited substance. When it came to outside of the civil rights era, he was a man of little substance. I'm keeping honest. Well, I'll talk more about that later in another podcast along with other topics. In the back burner. This is DJ Wolf. I'm out.